if you say, where is this need really coming from? It's not actually sex that I crave. What is it? What's behind that? Is it intimacy? Is it affection? Is it being held? Is it being understood? Is it anxiety, frustration, rejection, fear? What is the emotion that is coming from this urge? If you're with that for long enough, you'll begin to understand that it's not coming from a sexual place at all. We live in a culture that makes sex something that is a part of every single thing that we see, hear, and do. So it's no wonder that people think that sex is the answer to most of their problems. There are many people who are using sex as a way to meet their needs. And the sad thing is, it doesn't meet their needs at all. In fact, it makes a lot of problems for them. I would first like to say I'm approaching this topic compassionately, empathically. The hope is to help bring awareness to those who are suffering from it, or to those who have been hurt by it, or to those children who have been brought up with parents that suffer it as well. This is a problem that touches all aspects of society, and it's something that shouldn't be taboo to talk about. In fact, my hope is to take people away from that sense of shame, away from the secret life that's holding them back. No one in sex addiction feels good about themselves. No matter how much sex they have, no matter how many partners they have, no matter how thrilling it is, that wound is never satisfied, and it grows hungrier and hungrier the more you feed it. My hope is to help people understand themselves, to help us understand one another, and to help create an open conversation where we can find our way back to healthy, nurturing relationships with ourselves and one another. This life can be so amazing if you just find the courage to invest in yourself and to align your intentions with new values and new actions you can take to build upon that self-respect and that self-love that will extend out to others. So let's take a deeper dive into the truth of why people crave sex all the time. So why do people crave sex all the time? What is it that they're missing? Many people have been born into relationships with their parents where the attachment bonds were broken. They were never nurtured. They had a difficult time being seen, felt, or heard in the appropriate way. But oftentimes, people are born into families where the attention is not put on the child. The attention is put externally. Maybe mom and dad are interested in their careers more than they are connecting with a child who is so young. Maybe mom and dad are interested in going out and partying or having their own life and leaving the child behind with caregivers that are strangers. When a child has been put in a position like that, then that can leave a deficit inside of a human being of feeling a lack of self-worth. It can make a human feel that they don't know what their value is. They tend to lack the internal ability to validate themselves. Sex becomes a go-to tool for their validation because they'll crave another person to show them their value. There's something inside of them that does not feel that they are acceptable. They don't know how to fix that gap. They don't know how to make that right within themselves. So they go out looking for other people who can make them feel acceptable. This wound that was created in childhood that is trying to have its needs met, but it's having its needs met externally rather than internally. So the wound can never be satisfied. And in fact, the more that you grow to have the acceptance of others externally, the more that wound gets bigger and bigger, and it needs more and more external validation. So trying to use sex to feel self-acceptance, it actually creates a worse problem over time. And when you're using other people to self-validate, what happens over time is you lose respect for yourself. You lose the ability to really look at yourself in the mirror and know yourself and want to be with that person because you're using yourself as an object and you're allowing other people to use you as an object. Therefore, the more that you do it, the less you feel good about yourself, the less that you feel good about anybody in the world. And so it can create this emotional, mental, spiritual hole inside of a person. Whenever they have anxiety, depression, or stress, or loneliness, or if they feel unseen, or if they feel a sense of rejection, the thing that makes them immediately forget about that is to go straight to sex. And so sex can oftentimes become a coping tool. Some people learn to crave sex all the time because they have had sexual trauma in their lives. They have had people who have touched them or hurt them in some way that has caused them a pain and a suffering and a wounding. There has been a boundary that's been crossed that has stolen their innocence. That child's inner body will know something really bad is happening to me or has happened to me, and they will internalize that as shame. Sexual trauma is something we can carry with us for a lifetime, and it can confuse the body because biologically you can have a different response than your emotional and mental response. Unfortunately, sometimes the perpetrator that is hurting us sexually can confuse our minds. And so it can be very confusing to the child as to what is actually happening because you have different parts of yourself, some that are red flagging and some that are being mentally manipulated to say this is actually okay. And so you end up not knowing what to believe. And when that happens to a person, they can become very confused as adults or as teenagers or even as adolescents as to what is appropriate for themselves and for others. And they can sometimes hurt other people in the same way because of that confusion and that rage and that pain and that wound that has been created. Many people who crave sex all the time become addicted to power because they don't really feel powerful inside of themselves unless they're able to manipulate a situation or a circumstance or a person to get what they want from them. And so if you have an aversion to power, if you don't really know that you are a powerful human being, you may actually use your sexuality as a way for you to know yourself as a powerful human being. And using your sexuality to manipulate someone or to get power from someone is a very self-centered action. It will take away love and it will replace it with lust. For those who understand the difference, you'll realize it's a huge robbery because love brings you joy and inner peace and bliss and some of the most amazing feelings that you can have. But lust will steal that from you. Lust is an experience that is selfish, that wants all for yourself and doesn't care what it will take from other people. It doesn't care at all about other people. So once you've attuned yourself to lust, then you're a very destructive entity and you're destroying yourself at the same time. Sex addicts seek excitement and thrill because to them, life is mundane without the hunt. They look to go out there and see what kind of person they can objectify and conquer. Because life for them feels repetitive when they don't know how to nurture their emotional self and they're not in touch with their emotional development. And that's why people who do crave sex all the time become thrilled with the hunt of sourcing a new person to have sex with. That's why there are some people who will have multiple partners. They'll never stay with the same partner because that hunt helps them to get a thrill-seeking experience so that they can always feel something better than how they feel in their typical mode. When you're not in touch with yourself emotionally, you have no idea that you have everything inside of you that can make your life feel more joyous, more loving. It can bring you all of these wonderful feelings from inside of yourself. But when you feel nothing inside of yourself, when you feel deadness, or when there's something in you that's maybe traumatic that you don't even want to tune into that feeling, then you're going to constantly be on the running pattern, looking for the next thrill, the next object to chase, the next conquer. And that's because there's something that you're running from inside of yourself. Maybe it's an experience of trauma. Maybe it's all of the bad things you've done to other people. But sadly, you can't run from your past. You can't run from your trauma. You take it everywhere you go and you magnify it as long as you use it against others and yourself. And many people become addicted to the secrets. There's a part of their ego that feels like they have it all to themselves. They'll hold down the job and they'll do what everyone in society expects is right. But off on the side, they may go do some really scandalous, taboo things. And that's the part that they keep to themselves, that they think, well, if I have this little piece of me, then this is mine and I can do whatever I want in this world and no one will know about it. But it's simply not true. It's a lie that they tell themselves over and over again. And they rob themselves of an integrated life, which has the ability to really flourish much, much better than a secret life. They also rob themselves of the ability to have authenticity. Because when you have authenticity, you have the ability to really grow and have a much more expanded experience that is far more fulfilling than a secret life that's shady and filled with a lot of shame. People who crave sex all the time, they have a difficult time being accountable. They fear looking at the truth because they don't want to change and they're afraid to mature. They're stuck in an adolescent way of understanding themselves, and therefore maturity to them makes them feel limited. They fear that if they're accountable to themselves and they worked on their growth process, they would lose a part of themselves that is childish and adolescent, and they've come to seek thrills with and have a secret life with. One of the things that happens with people who crave sex all the time is they lack impulse control over their physical body and over their mind. If they see a certain trigger, maybe it's a beautiful woman or a hot-looking man walking by, that part of their body will wake up, that part of their mind will wake up, and it will just torment them to chase this person down to want to have sex. What's really happening is that they have programmed themselves neurobiologically to try to get a need met in a way that doesn't actually meet the need. And so they'll become compulsive about it. And in their mind, they're thinking, I have to have sex, I have to have sex, I want this person, I want this person, I want this person. And it becomes obsession. And if that person were to say, yes, let's have sex, and then they did, this still wouldn't meet the need, because for the moment they would be satiated, but after that moment had passed, that emptiness that they feel inside would reemerge. And so the compulsion that they have to meet these needs, never to actually meet the needs that are really speaking from within. The lack of attachment, the lack of intimacy, the feeling of invalidation, the trauma that they've experienced that needs to be healed, the self-rejection, the shame that they've built up over time, the lack of feeling that they know how to nurture themselves in a holistic and healthy way. If you're experiencing these experiences that I have described, it's really important that you understand that your experience in life can be greatly improved if you invest in meeting those needs for yourself. If you say, where is this need really coming from? It's not actually sex that I crave. What is it? What's behind that? Is it intimacy? Is it affection? Is it being held? Is it being understood? Is it anxiety, frustration, rejection, fear? What is the emotion that is coming from this urge? If you're with that for long enough, you'll begin to understand that it's not coming from a sexual place at all. It's coming from a different place. And once you give that place attention, you can be healed and whole and have a completely, entirely new experience again. So what are the benefits of rescuing yourself from sex addiction? One really important thing to recognize is that you won't be constantly interrupted by your base physical urges, that you can have an interesting conversation with a friend without your mind rerouting you to be having sex with her or him or someone else all the time, that you won't be having to go to pornography, that you won't be having to take in the objectification, the potential harming of someone else in your mind, because that is something that is very corrosive for your mind to be taking in. Having these urges come up, it can be very, very disruptive to you. They can hijack the best part of life. Life is meant to be lived with an open heart, a purity, an innocence. You can still have a wonderful sex life and be innocent at the same time. But if you have these urges compelling you into compulsive behaviors that undermine your relationship with your daughter, your son, your colleague, your friend, you name it, these compulsive urges can very much be in the way and can cut that time short, or you could be deepening in a relationship and a friendship. But when you're having these base urges, you are undercutting the relationships and the connection around you because you're serving a different master. You're serving a master that has no interest in your happiness and your wholeness and your inner peace. When you do this work to become safe from sex addiction, you become safe for the people around you to be around you. You become safe for people to be friends with you. You become safe for people to do business with you, for people to have their children around you, because you're no longer objectifying people. You're no longer looking at yourself as some sort of machine for sexuality and performance. You are now safer to have connection with, to spend time with. People around you can see that consistency. They can see who you are. There's no more shadiness where you disappear for periods of time and no one knows what happened to you. And let's face it, we're in an intuitive energy universe. A lot of times people know what you're doing is shady, but they may not call you on it. Having a more transparent, authentic, holistic life is in your benefit in many, many ways when it comes to relationships. You will learn to see those who were once objects to you as human beings, as people who deserve better. It's so important that you stop identifying people as objects, because we are not objects. And when you see people as objects, you hurt people very deeply. And a lot of times, people who are allowing you to use them as objects have already been hurt very deeply. And that's why they're allowing for this abuse, and even sometimes lying to themselves saying they enjoy it. They don't know what they enjoy because a lot of times they've been sexually traumatized very, very early, and they've lacked validation either by the male or the female culture. And so what you're really doing is actually traumatizing them even more, and you're hurting them, and they're hurting you. And so it's really important to begin seeing one another in our humanity, in our vulnerability. The other thing is that you'll find so much inner peace. You'll not only find inner peace, but you'll know how to set proper boundaries for yourself so that you can maintain your self-respect, and boundaries for others so that you don't degrade them. And this will also contribute to your feeling of sense of self-worth. You'll be able to heal the traumas and the wounds that caused you to misunderstand yourself and debase yourself and others. Because when you really start looking at the wounds that have caused this actions, that have caused you to overthink about sex or overuse sex as a tool for coping, then you'll understand why the hurt was caused in the first place and what you can do about that to really make peace with what happened to you. What happened to you in your trauma will never be right. But what you do about it as an adult changes everything. And it can be healed. You don't have to keep giving into these urges, giving into this secret life that you have. Now you can start honoring yourself, thinking about how to first have a relationship with yourself and later be able to have a sacred connection with somebody that you are committed to and that you love. You can live your life authentically, transparently, and you can be proud of that. You can be proud of yourself. You can know that, you know what, I once behaved this way when I didn't think very much about myself and I didn't know what my life meant to me. But now that I have done the work to look inside and handle what really was going on inside, I know how important I am to myself. I know what I want my life to become. And then you can start investing in that. And that feels better and better every day that you live that way. And eventually, once you've really come into the fullness of your journey away from sex addiction, you can become the greatest mentor and leader to others. You are able to help others out of the addiction that you were once a slave to. And that is the best feeling in the world, to be able to not only set yourself free, but to set others free from the slavery of the urges of sexual addiction. Sex is a wonderful thing, but it should really be honored. It's sacred. It's not something that you want to always be doing, because the sexual energy center is a creation center. It's where your greatest potency comes from. And if you look at the wisest people, they don't use sex. They hold back on sex because they are trying to birth a new wisdom into the world, a new truth, a new way of being. Because you're able to use that creative energy center in a very different way for transformation. So how do you recover from sex addiction and improve your life experience? Part of that is going to come from reprogramming the story you believe about yourself, the story that plays out over and over again in your head. When you're addicted to sex, a lot of times it's, I want sex, I want sex. There's this constant story that's on repeat. So really analyzing, what is that story? Listening to it, what is it telling me? And really journaling about that is one healthy step to take. A journal is one of the best ways to really get to know yourself in this commitment to becoming different and changing and transforming into a whole being. When you write out your journal, what your struggles are, when you write out what your fears are, when you really start getting in touch with your emotions and you really start seeing what you've written out, you will begin to have compassion and empathy for yourself in a way that will give you a new sense of power and relief. And this will go a long way towards aiding your recovery. That way you can see it from an objective standpoint and know when you hear this voice or when you hear these urges or this story, what's actually speaking. And then you can ask yourself, am I worthy? Am I worthy of a better life? Am I worthy of being free from having those urges play out in me all the time? Ask your heart that. Am I worthy of that? And your heart's going to say, yes, you are. Yes. Ask your heart, is it worth the work? Is it worth me letting go of all of this sex to actually go within? And then ask yourself, are you committed? Are you committed to this work? Find the reasons why there's a yes, and find the reasons why there's a no. Write those in 2 different columns. This way you can understand yourself and you can understand what to get behind, to commit to. Let your heart show you the vision for your life, and you'll be amazed at what you have been stealing from yourself, because your heart and soul know why you came here. Your soul came here for a specific reason. You're unique on this planet. Each of us are. We each have a unique reason for being here. Do you see the vision of what your life can be when you are committed to living free of constantly being controlled by sex? See that vision. What is your dream life? And then you will know why the cost is worth setting yourself free. To recover from sex addiction, it's important to discontinue hanging out with people and going to places and doing things that cause you to desire that. If drinking is your trigger, then stop drinking. If your addiction is to pornography, then uninstall everything you have. Get rid of everything you have. Look at pornography as human trafficking, because that's what it really truly is. And that's hurting you by ingesting that, by enjoying watching another human being suffer and be humiliated. If you can understand that and really wrap your mind around that, then you can find your decency to let it go and to say, this isn't good for me anymore. I refuse this. You will find your decency beyond that point. I promise you. And you will love who you are when you do that. You will love who you are. Be honest with those around you. Tell them what you struggle with. Tell them, and you will know if they support you. And if they're not strong enough, you have to get out of that way and you have to get out of there. Make sure you don't let anyone drag you down and take from you the potential that you've come here to seed. Your life can be so amazing. You can feel so much better without it. And I encourage you to see the bigger picture, to feel into what can be beyond the urges that you feel and the need that you're experiencing that is not being met. Make a commitment to close the door on all the resources that you have ever used to harm yourself sexually. Make that commitment. Make it out loud. Make it in your journal. Make that commitment clear to your friends. Tell those that you trust around you, because they can help you. They can help you to Stay strong. Going to a support group can be very helpful as well. Finding a sponsor, someone who can keep you accountable for your journey, and they can help you with coping tools and ways that they've dealt with their struggles. Allow your heart to vision a better experience for you ahead. That's a really big part of the commitment to recovery, because when you see something in life that you want that's better than the experience that you're having, you will be deeper in commitment towards it. Maybe it's just a better relationship with your son or your daughter. Maybe it's a better relationship with yourself. Maybe it's that you would like to be of service in a higher way. Maybe it's a career path. Maybe it's the way that people look up to you, that you can be a mentor. But see an aspect of life that calls you to commit to this work. When you've identified that you have a problem with sex, it's very important to commit to celibacy for at least 6 months. And I know that sounds like a lifetime for people who are addicted, but it's a one day at a time commitment. And it's something that you do your best at one day at a time. And if one day at a time is too difficult, you take it 1 hour at a time. So I really encourage you to love yourself to the other side of the rainbow, because life can be so amazing when you know yourself emotionally, spiritually, and you respect your body physically. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. I look forward to connecting with you all. If there's anyone that would like personal guidance, please reach out to me on my website. I love you all. Be well. And remember to be compassionate and kind to yourself.